Hello. I'm going to take a quick moment to just verbally support my explanation of the four sentence structures. Now, in the past, you've learned of three different kinds of sentences: simple, compound, and complex. What will make this experience very easy for you is if you make sure you have your chart of conjunctions with you whenever you're writing these kinds of sentences. Think of it as a word bank, and I'll post that with the assignment. So here we have the four sentence structures, and the first three you have heard of and you kind of know something about. The first one is called simple, and these express one idea, one complete idea. We call this an independent clause. Think of independent as someone or something that can stand by itself, okay? It's sort of like an adult. Think of the simple sentence or independent clause as an adult in terms of in a sentence, okay? It will have one subject, though it can be compound. That means, two nouns acting as the subject of a sentence about one situation. And it will have one predicate, though you can also have one subject doing two different things, right? So a simple sentence or independent clause is the adult in the larger sentences. It can be all by itself. It has one idea and one action, okay? The next kind of sentence is, so for example, my example here is, my mother makes my favorite chocolate cake. All right. One subject, my mother. One explanation of the subject, makes my favorite cake. A complex sentence is when you express one complete idea plus a supportive idea. One part is independent, the adult, that can be all by itself. But then there's a dependent part, the part that can't be by itself without the other part. But the thing is, each part, whether it's independent or dependent, has its own subject and its own predicate. The dependent part, the dependent clause that can't be by itself, will usually start with a subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun, like who, which, those, that. I think, I want to say who, but I'm not sure. Or what. But things like whatever, whenever, wherever. Again, consult your chart of conjunctions and relative pronouns, and coming up with a complex sentence is pretty easy, so long as you remember that the part that's all by itself has a subject and a verb, and the other part that follows that subordinating conjunction or relative pronoun also has its own subject and verb. Okay? And the thing is, just keep in mind, if you start with a dependent clause, if you start with a subordinating conjunction as your first word, that part is going to be followed by a comma before you proceed with the independent part. All right? Now, you've also heard, okay, so our example is, my mother makes my favorite chocolate cake, and then here's that, oh, by the way, we don't need that comma. Here's that relative pronoun, which, though in this case it's acting like a subordinating conjunction, which she bakes every winter holiday. Okay, so notice my mother is the subject of the independent clause, makes is the verb of the independent clause, and after this subordinating conjunction, there's a new subject, she, and there's another verb, bakes. So there's two subjects, two verbs. But one part is all independent. One part needs the other part to be complete. Then there's the other kind of sentence, one that you're all very good at writing, and that's compound. These are relatively easy to write because think of it as just taking two sentences and connecting in the middle with a conjunction. Okay? A coordinating conjunction. Remember the idea, the acronym FANBOYS. And I know you can, because if you can remember Roy G. Biv for the spectrum of light, you can remember FANBOYS. FANBOY stands for and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. Now, the thing is with compound sentences, there are two equally, or you can have more, you can have 3 or 4, equal independent parts. Each part of the sentence could be its own sentence all by itself. But again, they are connected by a coordinating conjunction, one of the fanboys. Or boy fans, you can put it either way. Each independent part has its own subject and predicate. Each sentence has its own subject and own verb, and again, it's connected in the middle. Just keep in mind, after the first, or if you have 2 sentences or 2 independent parts of a compound sentence, the first will end with a comma, then you'll have your conjunction. So these words here, they're going to have a comma in front of them, okay, whenever you're connecting 2 independent parts. So for example, my mother makes my favorite chocolate cake. My mother is the subject, makes is the verb. Then I end it with a comma. Then I have my coordinating conjunction and then I have another independent part. I eat the leftovers of it for breakfast. Yeah. And the subject is I, and the verb is eat. So this sentence has 2 subjects and 2 verbs. And again, 2 independent ideas connected in the middle. Now here's the new one, the new kind of sentence. And believe it or not, you guys write these sentences all the time. You just didn't know what they were called. These are called compound complex sentences, where you pretty much have more than one independent parts or independent clauses, plus a subordinating clause. I don't want to get too technical, but it includes parts that can't be by themselves, but they have its own subject and verb, and it supports the compound part. So again, there's 2 or more complete ideas, but it does include an incomplete or a dependent part. All right? But each part, whether it's independent or dependent, will have its own subject and predicate. These kinds of sentences can have a coordinating conjunction, one of the fanboys, but it can also have either a subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun. And of course, once again, if you start a sentence with a subordinating conjunction, after that dependent clause, it needs a comma before you proceed with the rest of the sentence. And if you have a fanboy, and or, but, so, yet, nor, there should be a comma in front of it, especially if there's a clause that has a subject and a noun in front and a subject and a noun after it. So for example, as you can see, the way I build the examples, you can do this too, is I just took one simple idea and just kept on adding it to meet the structural needs of this lesson. And you can do that on your work too. So my mother makes my favorite cake. That's an independent part. But here's my dependent part, which she makes every winter holiday. But then I have a comma, and I have a coordinating conjunction, and I eat the leftovers for breakfast. So I have 2 independent clauses here and here. They don't have to be separated by a dependent clause. They can be one after another. You just have to use a comma. And then here's my dependent part. And so the fact that there's more than one independent part of the sentence plus a dependent part, one that can't be by itself, the fact that you have it all together and it makes sense and it's clear, we call that a complex and compound sentence. So when you do your work, you'll do this with the TA. And you can do this on your assignment. You'll have an example right above you. Here it says the moon travels in a circle around the earth. There's one subject and one verb. So just come up with a sentence that uses one subject and one verb. I rode my bike today. Okay? And then here we go. As the moon makes its orbit, it can be seen from Earth. That's a complex sentence because, see, there's that subordinating conjunction. So I could say, I'm even going to use the same conjunction. As the storm clouds formed, I rode my bike today. You don't have to reinvent the wheel as you do this exercise. Here, we have a complex sentence. Sorry, that's a complex sentence. This is a compound sentence. I need to label these. I'll do that before I post it. This is a compound sentence. Well, I'm going to say, the storm clouds formed. Notice I didn't include the subordinating conjunction, comma, and I still rode my bike today. Okay? And then I can throw something in new I'm going to be a little lazy here, and you can do this too. I'm going to take my complex sentence, Control C, put it down here, Control V, and then I'm going to put a comma here and go, and I rushed home. So there I have a dependent clause, I have an independent clause, and I have another independent clause connected by a conjunction. Okay? So don't work too hard on this. You're focusing on the skill of writing sentences with different structures. Keep to the same topic, keep to the same basic ideas, and just rewrite it according to the structure being asked for. Okay? Congratulations. I know you'll do a great job.